Welcome to the Simpler Business Podcast, where we talk about ways to do what you love and serve your people in a way that brings you income and freedom. I'm your host, Marissa Roberts. Join me as I chat with my favourite entrepreneurs about how they simplify their biz so that you can simplify yours. You know that bookkeeping is important. It allows for improved financial decision making, better cash flow management, compliance with your tax laws, improved business performance, and easier access to financing. But if you're anything like me, you are also not a bookkeeper and you stress out. You worry about, how do I code my expenses? Where do I code them? How do I keep track of who owes me money? What are my tax obligations? And who do I even go to if I want to ask for help? I have found in my experience and those of my private clients bookkeeping it's not easy. If it doesn't come natural for you and you don't enjoy it, it's just this kind of like this burden on your shoulders that you can never really shake off. And I know from experience that, especially if you're in the first few years of your business, getting a bookkeeper feels like a big expense. So yeah, if you're feeling that way, you are not alone. Quite a lot of us have felt that way too. And we tend to be left in one of three situations. You can get your accountant to sort it out for you, but that will cost you a fortune. You can have a go at bookkeeping yourself, but then you're going to make plenty of mistakes and then it's going to cost you time and money to have it fixed. Or you could get your partner or a family member or a friend to help you out. But when you don't know bookkeeping inside and out, you're not actually confident that they know everything because you don't know what to check on. You don't know what to see that they're familiar with. So yeah, it can be quite a lot of pressure and quite a lot of overwhelm to add to your shoulders as a business owner. But the good news is there is a simple solution for you now, and I am so excited to talk about it today. I've got Malisa Clarence on the show. She's going to come and talk to us about Ask Hub. Ask Hub has been created to help small business owners to save time by making the bookkeeping process as simple and as pain-free as possible for those business owners looking after their own bookkeeping. And yeah, I'm so excited. Malisa is the founder of Ask Hub, and she's going to talk about how you can use it to make managing your accounts easier as a business owner. Malisa, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here because, this is a topic that I'm like, it just makes me cranky.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Look, I was listening to that little intro there and I thought, gosh, you're making bookkeeping actually sound really exciting, which I know everyone's eyes glazed over at the first word when you said bookkeeping. But yes, it's one of those things that you just have to do in business. Nobody really loves it. I am just one of those nerdy people that just really gets excited when things balance. So that's why I am bookkeeper. But I get that small business owners don't find it exciting, and so I'm just really keen to let everybody know that you don't have to love it, but you do need to do it. And Ask Hub is a business that I've created to just try and make it a little bit simpler for those small businesses.
I love that you've done it because I think most business owners follow the same pattern I did. They try and do their own books because they feel small. I don't want to pay out a lot of money. Especially the first couple of years of your business, you think I might not be earning a lot straight away. I don't want to pay all of it out in bookkeeping fees. But then you get into that overwhelm so fast. I don't understand the codes. I don't understand the laws. And because it's not an interest, I just feel like every time I tried to learn about it, it was just confusing. And it was a grudge task, right? We start our business because we're like, we want freedom. We want to do what we love. And then we forget about all the hats you have to wear as a business owner when it comes to like admin and customer service and marketing and finance and bookkeeping is the big one. Yeah. We just want to have fun.
I think I've been a bookkeeper for 20 years. So it defies my age a little, that statement. But what I discovered is there is a hole in the market, and you're speaking of those people that, it's those small startup businesses. Budget is tight at the beginning, especially if you haven't got a particular amount of money to start your business. A lot of people just go, I've got a great idea and off I go, I'll get a bank account.
Yeah.
And I still want to help those people because I think at the beginning it's the most important time to get the help. Once you're rocking and rolling along and you've got the funds to outsource, it's a different situation.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't work out how I could help those people and, charge my worth and do all of those things that, I've been learning in business along the way. So that's why the Ask Hub is here. It's to sort of bridge that gap. It's to help these people that are really starting out in business that have zero concept of accounting, but it's a huge function of their business, and it really does make or break their business in 5 years. You don't know the pitfalls until a couple of years into business, which is another reason why people kind of put on the back burner. It's like, oh, it's not making any impact on my business. I'll get around to it. And most businesses in Australia will fail within the first 5 years. And generally it's because they don't look after their bookkeeping and their accounting side because they're so busy trying to get clients or making sales or doing all of those other things. And it's a real shame because there's probably been some fantastic businesses out there that have folded.
Yeah. Tell me more about the pitfalls and the challenges that businesses tend to face. Do you find there's a pattern when business owners are trying to do their own bookkeeping on what they get wrong or where they struggle?
Yeah, look, I think the basic reason is that overwhelm that you spoke about. Firstly, small business owners don't know what to do. So they'll think maybe they'll try and do the right thing and they'll open up a spreadsheet and they'll put all of their things into a spreadsheet. And then they kind of give that spreadsheet over to their accountant, and then their accountant has got to try and make sense of like this whole list of transactions and things like that. So what that does is it just creates a huge amount of accounting fees because you're giving this piece of document to somebody else to decipher. Now that's even if people do that step. Some people don't even do that step. What happens in the business when you create a new business is that the tax office doesn't come knocking on your door straight away. They don't really know that you exist. You might have got an ABN number, so you're registered on a directory somewhere, but until you submit your first tax return, you are so under the radar. And so that's one of the bigger problems that I see is that people get 18 months into business and then they think, oh, I probably should have done something, like maybe I'm meant to do my tax return. And then they'll go to their accountant and then their accountant will be like, well, where's all the data? So it's this real catch-22, and you can slide under the radar. You really can. No one's coming and knocking on your door and saying, we know you haven't done a bank reconciliation. We know that you haven't, done your tax return. And I think what happens is that then people start to get really nervous because they don't know what the situation's going to be. Have they made a whole lot of money? And they're going to have to pay a whole lot of tax that they haven't put any money aside for. So I think what happens is they come to that realization that they've got to do compliance work, which is basically lodging your tax return. And then they start freaking out about it. And then they go, I'll do it another day. I'll keep putting it off until you just can't put it off anymore. Maybe you've got kids, maybe you get childcare benefit. You have to lodge that tax return. And then it all sort of compounds on top of them.
Yeah, that is exactly how I felt when I first started out. It was like this head in the sand thing. Like, I know I have to deal with it, but I'm not ready yet. But then every transaction I made in my business added more and more and more things that I would have to account for and organize. And I remember the first time, I am so the classic example of the person you're saying struggles. The very first time I went to do my taxes as a business owner, as a sole trader, I actually printed out, I had no idea what I was doing. You don't know what you don't know. I printed out every single transaction, PayPal transaction that I'd had in a year. And I had this massive folder of paper-based. And I just handed that to my accountant and said, is this what you want me to give you? And they took the folder. They were very nice. They smiled and went, thanks. And then, it was a very expensive tax return that year in terms of paying for the service because I just gave them too much. I didn't know what they did and didn't need, and I didn't want to look stupid and ask.
Yes.
But that kind of backfired.
Look, that's the other thing I think people find overwhelming about accounting is that accountants don't do a module at university that talks about communication. I'm a bookkeeper, so I am not an accountant. I'm that bridge in between. So I know how to talk to a small business owner to get them to understand the point that I'm trying to get across about their accounts. I use a lot of analogies and things like that. But accountants are really set in their ways. They've probably been doing it for a long time, and they speak in accounting terminology.
Yeah.
And I think people are really they're either don't understand entirely, but they also don't ask questions because they don't want to appear stupid.
Yeah.
They just sit there and nod and listen to what their accountant is saying, and they probably walk out of, or to get off that phone call or walk out of their office and just go, I've got no idea what that person has just said to me, and then they just go on again.
Yeah.
So it's sad because if accountants just had a better way of communicating, it would have helped their small business owners out so much.
Yeah. But it's so ironic, isn't it? Because they're good at being accountants because data and numbers are their strength, not people skills. And so I'm like, I get it, but I had no solution. And there was no Ask Hub when I was first starting out, because I started like 10, 12 years ago in my business. And it really was a case of I have no idea what I don't know. And I would talk to friends who were business owners, but they wouldn't want to share because they were worried that they were getting it wrong too, and didn't want to give me the wrong advice and have me get in trouble later based on what they were doing. And getting a bookkeeper was a big turning point for me, but I really couldn't afford it at the start, and I really didn't know what to expect either. And so, I think you're right. There's a big gap that needs filling there. So to have Ask Hub come about, I think that's going to help so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I hope so. I hope that what I can deliver to people is that it's not difficult what we do. Let me tell you, it's really not difficult. But it just gives people the confidence that they can have a go at it and they're not going to get into a bit of a bind. The accountant at the end of the day is always there. You still always have to have an accountant. But what you can do is you can go to them with pretty good accounting records and just say, look, these are the few things that I didn't know, instead of giving them a whole lot of PayPal printouts.
Yeah, massive folder. And I still didn't know for like 6 months that was not the thing I was meant to do, because they were just so nice about it.
Right. Yeah. They probably, as soon as you walked away, they probably will get another live one here. Look at what she's delivered.
I know. Oh my gosh, so awkward. And I bet I'm not the only one.
No.
Yeah. So
you are not the only one.
Yeah, well, I feel better knowing that at least. So do you reckon Ask Hub is the place to go if I've got people who are going, okay, look, I've got questions about bookkeeping, but I don't actually know who to ask because I feel like if I take it to my accountant, that's the wrong person. Is that kind of what inspired you to start Ask Hub? Like, this is going to be the place that people can go to if they've got questions, no matter how silly they feel?
Yeah, look, I guess you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly why Ask Hub is here. So in my bookkeeping business, I did a lot of Xero training, and I had a lot of people come to me asking to set them up on Xero and to give them some training. And they'd probably spend 2 hours with me over a couple of days. And then I'd be like, okay, there you go. There's your beautiful Xero file. I've given you the basic concepts. Off you go. And my husband said to me one day, he goes, when those people have got questions after you've delivered them their file to them, what do they do? And I said, well, I'm a nice person. Sometimes they'll ask me and I'll just give it away. Or they'll ask a family member or somebody that they know. And that's fraught with danger because, as you said, you don't know if you're getting the right answer.
Yeah.
Or they shove their head in the sand and go, don't know how to fix it, just leave it, won't do anything with it. So that's exactly what I've tried to create, is that I know the answers because this is my forte. This is what I've been doing for so long. And how do I get me to a mass market where people can answer these questions, or get the answers to these questions and confidently move forward with their bookkeeping until their business really gets going, and then they can afford to outsource and do all of those other things. So that's exactly why we've created this product. Basically, it's the answers to everything, and it's also that support team behind you when you just need a quick answer on something. You're just not sure, you don't back yourself, and you just want to get confirmation.
And you're not sure, like, if you're actually asking the right question too, that sort of feeling, because we can Google, but you go down a rabbit hole and it just, you can't trust the answer if you're just Googling it. So I love the idea of being able to pay for a service that's going to give me a trusted answer, but also guide me if I'm not quite asking what I'm meant to be asking, sort of thing.
Yes. And that's actually really true. I don't know if your listeners and you have been living under a rock, but there's all this artificial intelligence out there at the moment. And the big one is ChatGPT. And what I've been learning about ChatGPT is the way that you frame the question is the difference between the answer And it's exactly the same as with your questions around your business. If you don't frame the question in the right way, you're going to get the dodgy answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off. Can we touch on, I really want to make my listeners feel like they're completely normal if they're in a situation where bookkeeping's not working for them. So I thought, can we touch on some of the mistakes that you see business owners making in the bookkeeping, just in case anyone's listening going, I don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. I don't know if I'm the only one that stuffs up in this area. What do you tend to see we do wrong as business owners?
Well, I mean, there's been some doozies in my time. I actually had one the other day where I don't think I'd had this one come across my radar before, and I did nearly fall off my chair. So a lady reached out to me, and her bookkeeper had been in a car accident and she wasn't going to be able to get her BAS done on time, and she had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yep, that's no problems. We've got a couple of weeks. What is it that you do? Like, have you got a zero file? Are we spreadsheets? Are we, receipts in a shoebox type of situation? She said, no. I've got a zero file. I run my payroll through it. Great. Okay. So what about all of the bank transactions? Oh no, I print out my bank statements and I send them to my bookkeeper.
In the
And I
mail?
went, okay, but you just told me that you had zero. And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, then why are we doing a printout of your bank statements? Actually, it wasn't even a printout. It was a CSV file. She thought she was really fancy.
Oh, no.
Anyway, the upshot was that she was literally only using Xero to do her payroll because of single touch payroll. You have to connect to the ATO now. You can't do payroll in a book anymore.
Yeah.
But everything else was still manual. And she was in the tradie services industry, and I was like, okay, so what do you do when you ask your customers to pay you? And she's like, oh, no, I use ServiceMate. I was like, oh, great. So have you got that connected to Xero? No. Can you connect? I said, so, okay. So when you give a customer an invoice, how do you know if they've paid it? And she's like, oh, I've got a pretty good gauge. I just have a feeling. I have a feeling that most of my customers have paid me. So just in that 15 minutes of conversation, I was like, this poor person has, got 3 sets of things going on. She's got a payroll in one, she's doing a customer invoicing another, and then her bank statements are totally manual and sent off to this outsourced bookkeeper. And I said to her, look, I don't want to change your world, but with Xero, all of those 3 functions are all in the same thing.
And you're already
they all talk to each other. And I said, I know that you think that you know what people owe you money, and this is a classic small business scenario. Somebody will send you an email and say, hey, I've just paid your invoice, and you'll believe them, but you don't go and check the bank account. If you're not reconciling your customer payments back to your bank statement, how would you know if they actually paid you? You just read that email and you go off and you do your 1,500 other things in your small business.
Yeah.
So I said, I bet that there's a lot of customers that you've worked for that haven't paid you. And she goes, oh, most of the big ones definitely will have paid me, but maybe some of the smaller ones haven't. And she was a painter. And I said, so can I get you to come and paint my house for free then? Because it sounds like you're not chasing up payment and you're working for people for free. Now, that is a 101 in small business. People don't chase up their invoices from their customers. A little bit different if you're like an online type business where people have to put their credit card in to actually purchase something. But in a business where you're sending out invoices, if you are not asking your customers to pay you, you're basically working for free. And that's just going to kill your business because your margins are likely to be small. And the money that you're losing on all of those smaller jobs is actually just chewing into your margin. So that was a huge one. I thought in this day of technology where there's just so many things that and she sounded like she was kind of on top of it too. Like she had ServiceMate, she had Xero, but everything was like disassociated. And so chase up your customers for payment. You've done a service, you've provided a product. You're not harassing them. And otherwise you might as well just put up the free sign and say, I'm here to serve you for free. So that's a huge one. And if anyone listening to this podcast thinks, oh yeah, I probably should go back and check if everyone's paid, do it, because there might be $1,000 that you can collect and you just haven't really thought about it.
Do you know what? I've been listening to you and I just realized I still invoice manually too. And I have Xero and a great bookkeeper. But because I've never proactively gone, hey, I'd like to start invoicing through Xero. Can you help me with that? And it's the same thing. I didn't want to seem stupid by asking. I figured I'd figure it out myself. So then I procrastinated on it.
Yeah.
And never actually did it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for more than a decade.
But the thing is that we get stuck in our ways, right? And we probably just have a system of doing something. And the idea of changing into a different thing will take time in the beginning that potentially you don't have, but it will save you time in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's, another part of the Ask Hub is teaching people how to systemize their business, because you shouldn't be spending hours on your bookkeeping. No one wants to do it. It's not fun. Yeah. Don't spend hours doing it. Learn how to do it more efficiently so that you can spend more time on your sales and your customers and those, growing your business and things like that. I don't advocate sitting here 5 hours a week doing your bookkeeping. No one wants to do that.
Let the systems do the work for you. You
Absolutely.
pay for the system anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. What are the sort of things we could do to streamline bookkeeping processes then? Have you got like a top 3 things that you can do to make sure it is nice and streamlined, or a top thing that everybody should start with? What do you think?
Look, I mean, if you're not running some type of accounting software, that's your starting point. That's the first bus stop to get on it.
Yeah.
If you're still running a spreadsheet, it doesn't serve your purposes to run your business through a spreadsheet. I've seen people do like a CSV dump out of their bank account and then kind of like sort it as well. But the software developer at Xero thought about that and thought, well, how can I make it easier for business? So the interface in Xero is basically you sorting your transactions. So if you don't have software, get on board with it. If you do have software, have a think about how you do things. Like you've just said that you're doing your manual invoicing somewhere else. Should you be doing it through Xero? Another huge one for me is using the automation facilities within Xero, like sending an invoice that you've received in your inbox directly into your Xero file. There is a unique email address that is connected in every Xero file, and you can press forward on your email and the bill arrives into Xero, and then you can see it sitting there going, oh, well, I need to pay that in 14 days or whatever the due date is. So learn the functionality that you've got at your disposal and use it to the best advantage, because I still see people running their payables, and when I say payables, it's like the bills that you owe people through their inbox. They have like folders. Now I've got to pay this next week, or they leave it in their inbox and it's like a reminder that they've got to pay that bill, and then that unfortunately gets to the bottom of your inbox. It's got 150 emails in it. Totally forget to pay the bill. Or I've seen people still using the whole let's print the bill out and put it on our desk so that we remember.
Oh, and have like an old paper spike.
All of that is a system that person has created that isn't as efficient as using the technology. So my big thing in business is use the technology to make your life easier. And if it doesn't make your life easier, then, don't use that particular function, but have a look at ways of trying to streamline the things that you are doing.
Yeah.
So that's my big tip is using automation to get all of your accounts and things streamlined.
I love that tip. I truly believe that systems are so good, automations are so good now, that it's almost like you've got your own digital personal assistant doing your work for you. Like all the stuff that people used to hire a secretary for or hire a personal assistant for can pretty much all be done online now, and it can be set and forget and just review it every year or two. And it really does save so much time, but also so much overwhelm and so much stress when you don't have to juggle those numbers in your head anymore, and you don't have to keep track of who's paid this invoice, have I sent this invoice. Like all of that is mental load that then and frees you up for the fun stuff.
We've got enough other things going on in our brains, like when the athletics carnival's coming up and all the other family stuff that's crowding in, and then add into that all of the things that you're trying to remember for your business. The less that you have to remember and the more that you can rely on a system or an automation, the easier life is going to be for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's such a good point. And so all of the things like, figuring out what can I automate, what can I integrate with Xero, is that all in Ask Hub? Like I can just go there and look for it?
Yep. So it's basically a whole lot of modules that I've recorded in there. So everything from just basic, what is bookkeeping and why is it necessary, all the way through to add-on products that you can use with Xero, like ServiceMate if you're a tradie. So basically that's a piece of software that automates your calendar and your bookings and, you know, sends a text message to the client when you're on the way to their site. And it does all this fantastic stuff. But it also then, when you create an invoice, it sends it straight back to Xero. So you don't have to do any double handling of your invoicing. So there's a specialized module that I've recorded that just goes through briefly, you know, most of the apps that people are using to make their life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's everything that I've learnt in a portal that is there for people to access. And then obviously each week I'm trying to keep on top of everyone's questions that they send in, because I understand that there'll be nuances to your business that I haven't recorded. There'll be ways or things that you need to do in your small business that may not be a generic thing that everybody does. So that's why we've got the question form to allow you to send in that specialized question. Or, you know, you've watched the video in the portal, it still doesn't make any sense to you, send in a question, that kind of thing. So just really a supportive environment to make the overwhelming feeling of bookkeeping go away, and just it's just part of your business. It's a really easy part to keep on top of. And what we haven't spoken about yet is the reason why it's so important to keep on top of it is because how do you know where you're going in your business if you don't know?
Yeah, that's true.
How do you make decisions about products that you want to purchase, or you know, marketing strategies that you want to employ if you don't actually know what the numbers of your business are? So this a whole reason that we do this inane data entry. And I'm not afraid to call it inane. It's boring. Is there's a purpose. It gives you a set of numbers that allows you to drive in the direction that you want to go. And if you don't have them, you're just aimlessly wandering through a field.
And that's a stress level as well, too. When you know your numbers and you can see it, everything you need at a glance, I think that takes so much pressure off. It's like, you know what it reminds me of? I remember when I was younger and I had a ton of debt, like credit card debt, that sort of thing. And I was too scared to get on top of it because I was too scared to actually look at the numbers. But once I did, I could work out a plan, and then I wasn't so emotionally attached to the debt anymore. And I actually paid it off really fast because I was familiar with it. And I feel like this is a version of the same thing. Like if everybody gets a handle on their bookkeeping just enough so that it's ticking over smoothly, then when you want to make a decision on, do I have advertising budget for that? Do I have the money to afford to add a new range to my product line? Like it's going to take that emotional attachment away from that decision, because you can see, yes, we can afford it right now, or no, we should do some more waiting and maybe look for another option. And I feel like that alone is going to help with stress levels as a business owner, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you just cannot know where you're going in business without knowing what the numbers are. It's just a simple fact of business. And I think a lot of people use their bank account as the figure. Everyone looks in their bank and goes, "Oh, I've got money. I'll just spend it on this." But that's not necessarily true. Some of that money in that bank account might belong to the tax department or to superannuation, or for, you know, a variety of things. You might be leasing a car, and that lease payment's got to come out every month. So, you know, running your business through your bank account is just going to lead to pain. And until you know what your numbers are, you're never going to be able to move forward, I think.
Yeah. And honestly, having a handle on this stuff does make tax time not a big deal anymore. Like I've noticed the last few years when my books are taken care of and I know what I'm doing and I just know enough to keep it ticking along smoothly, I don't dread tax time anymore.
No, and you shouldn't have to. It's a necessary evil. I know that we all have to pay tax and we don't enjoy doing it. But if it also didn't involve hours and hours of work to get to an awful figure that you've got to pay, which I feel like is a double whammy of pain. It's like so you've got to sit down with all your stuff and then you've got to give it to the accountant. If you're up to date with your accounts, you could send an email to your accountant in the second week of July and say, "Hey, ready to go." Not that you have to lodge your tax return straight away, but you'll get what the number is and you'll be able to plan to pay that in 3 or 4 months' time, instead of them ringing you in May saying, "Hey, we need to lodge your tax return in 2 weeks. We need everything now." And then you're like,
you have to drop it all and drop everything and do it. Yeah.
And then you've got no time to pull the money together to make the payment either if you have to pay tax. So All in all, the more organized that you can be and the more up to date is just a win-win for your own business health, your stress levels, and the fact that you just can pre-plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I really think that having a trusted resource in your back pocket that you can turn to at any time, that's a really good way to do it. And it's going to take away that stress of, oh, okay, I've got to book a consult to talk to somebody and find out when they're available and when I'm available. But being able to just go and ask a question easily or look at the questions that have already been answered, that's going to be a big time saver as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And affordability as well. Like, I appreciate that at the beginning, as I said before, money is tough and you are trying to build a business to give you some financial freedom, but you've also got to spend money on things. And usually bookkeeping is at the bottom of the pile because, people just don't value it as much as a marketing consultant. They push a marketing consultant's door down to pay for some sort of consult. It's because, they think it's going to make their sales bigger and it's going to make their business better. But the poor old bookkeeping over here, we just get left behind. But the idea of the Ask Hub is it's super affordable. It's like a coffee a day in your business. And it does give you the access. We give you accountability as well. Like, my husband's business is a gym. Now, if you go to a gym or you sign up to go to a gym, but you just don't make any of the classes, your body's not going to change. So one of the things in his gym is the accountability of turning up. Like, well, you're paying for your gym fees. If you don't come, he's like messaging you, hey, what's going on? Like, why aren't you turning up to the gym?
Yeah.
It could just be one session a week. And you'll notice over time that your body will change. And it's the same thing in your bookkeeping function in your business. Even if you just put aside half an hour a week, 1 hour a week, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of time. But if you just consistently did that, you are not going to get to that overwhelming, oh my gosh, there's 759 transactions that I've got to do something with, and I've got 2 weeks to do it in.
Yeah.
So we're a provider of information, but we're also trying to make people accountable and say, hey, just do a little bit at a time, just a little bit every week consistently, and your accounts will be in such better shape than they were before you did that consistently.
Yeah, I think that really helps get you into a good habit too. And the more it becomes a habit, the easier it is. And the easier it is, the more confident you are with it. So imagine how you're going to be a year from now if you're taking just that small, consistent little bits of time to focus on this and get more confident with it. It's going to make a really big difference in terms of your business, being able to manage your business. And I think it's a real key factor when it comes to success, because the more you know your business numbers, the easier it is to run your business. And the easier it is to run your business, the more confident you are in doing.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is that sometimes there's going to be a point in your business where you need finance, whether or not that's a loan just to take out to buy stock, or you're purchasing a motor vehicle or whatever. You need these numbers up to date, because that's exactly what they're going to ask you for when you go for that financing. So all in all, the motto is be as up to date as you possibly can, because it's only going to serve you in your business, and it just doesn't serve you to shove your head in the sand and go, I'll deal with it later.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So tell us about the pricing for Ask Hub. And I know you've got a generous offer for our listeners today too. So I'm excited to tell them about that. You want to give us a bit of info on it?
Yeah. So my offer for your listeners today is a 2-week trial in the Ask Hub. So I'd really like people to dive in and have a look. They don't have to believe what I've said here. They can have a poke around and have a look at the content, see if it flows with them. We do weekly lives on Facebook, which is all around the, questions, topical information of that week. And outside of the 2-week free trial, the cost is $25 a week. It's a subscription, $25 a week, opt in, opt out whenever you want to. But we're basically here just to help you get your accounts on top of, be better at your accounts. I'm mumbling my words all over. So I feel like we are trying to make it as affordable as possible. As I said, it's a coffee a day. I drink a double shot cappuccino. So at the moment, I'm spending $5.50 on my coffee. And it's a tax deductible expense. So it's not as if there's no benefit to the spend. But it's certainly a lot cheaper than at the end of the year getting an undergrad at your accounting firm to do a whole lot of data entry for you. Yeah. And it is a lot cheaper than having to outsource to a bookkeeper, who's, mostly the bookkeeping industry is going into a fixed fee situation. So you're looking at a minimum spend of like $400 or $500 a month to outsource to a bookkeeper. Yeah. But I also believe, and, counterproductive a little bit to my own business, you should actually know how to do it anyway. Because when you outsource the work to somebody, you should know how to do that so that you can check the work.
Yeah.
It's no good blindly giving your accounts over to somebody else and just going, oh, I don't know how to do it, so I'm glad that you're here to do it. You should still understand the concept of the bookkeeping of your business so that you can check it. Because at the end of the day, when you sign your tax return, it's your name on it, and it's you are saying that everything in that tax return is true and correct. So can't rely on saying, oh, but I didn't do any of my own data entry, I outsourced it. So so the Ask Hub, I think it's a truly affordable little tool to have in your back pocket, and just be there to answer all of those questions.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think about, if I was once a year trying to get all my stuff together, when I think about what my hourly rate is when I'm doing services for private clients, but I can't do that. I can't get paid for that time while I'm doing my own books. I'm losing out on tons of money there too. So it makes sense to do a small payment every week to stay on top of it rather than sacrifice thousands in a month once a year because I have to spend that time doing that. So yeah.
And also we're moving into an environment now of compliance with the tax office where they're just not willing to wait for that amount of time. It's the BAS is quarterly. Some people do an installment activity statement, which is monthly. Single touch payroll is here where we have to report every time we do someone's pay run. We've got to send data to the ATO. So it's all coming down to, more is, frequently doing the accounts and doing it up to date. So if you get into that habit early on, then it'll just flow through your business, as it grows and gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds wonderful. All right. So it's askhub.com.au for everybody listening. And I'll put a link in the show notes. So it's really easy for people to just click through and check it out. And how do they get the free trial? Will we have a special link for them then?
There is a special link. If you could put that in your show notes as well for people to join for the 2-week trial.
Yeah.
And then we can send out their all their registration details and all that sort of bizzo.
Excellent. Oh, good. So we're going to make it nice and easy for you, listeners. So make sure you jump in and really make the most of that couple of weeks too, because the more familiar you get using the hub, the easier it is to find the information that you're looking for as well.
That's right.
So yeah, jump in, have a glass of wine or a cup of tea, sit down, put time aside in your calendar to actually do it, because that's where we fail too, right? It's like we're like, yep, I'll sign up for it and I'll do it when I get a minute. And then life gets crazy busy. So schedule yourself a half an hour at least to just for your first session to go in and have a bit of a look around at what you can actually use it for, because I think that's what's going to get people interested in staying on top of it as well, and I think takes the pressure off then. So
and look, we'll be here giving you gentle nudges along the way. You'll get some emails from us reminding you, hey, don't forget about us, don't turn this into a mushroom.
like Facebook Lives. I love the idea of the Facebook Lives.
Yes. So it's a way of being topical for that week. So, this week's Facebook Live was, hey, Baz is around the corner, let's get excited, which nobody is and nobody said ever. But yeah, it's just a way of also just reminding people that we're here. So don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no dumb questions. I've heard most of them, and I've got an answer for all of them. So
lovely. Oh, Malisa, you're wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show and introducing this to us, because the more people that find out about this, the better, I think. It's going to be very helpful.
No, well, thank you for allowing me to explain the concept. And hopefully, even if people don't dive into the Ask Hub, I hope this has really inspired them to really pay more attention to their accounts and just know how important it is to the health of their business, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, don't be afraid to get to know your numbers. Don't procrastinate on looking at your books, because it will get harder over time. The more you don't look at it, the more familiar you are, the better you're going to feel about it and the better results you're going to get from it. So yeah, I hope everybody who's been listening today has enjoyed our conversation as much as I've had it, and I will see you all in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Simpler Business Podcast. If you did, please subscribe, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you, just the way we like it. If you're ready to simplify and scale your business, you can get started with my free audio class at marissaroberts.com. See you next time.